never thought numbers could get you killed. For 8 years, I'd made a quiet living as a forensic accountant in Seattle. The kind of work where you trace money through shell companies and offshore accounts, where every decimal point matters and lies hide in spreadsheets. I liked the precision of it, the way truth always emerged if you looked hard enough. My clients were mostly divorce attorneys and small businesses. Nothing glamorous. But it paid the bills and let me work from my cramped downtown apartment. That Tuesday started like any other. Rain hammered against my windows as I poured my third cup of coffee and opened the encrypted files from my newest client, a construction company called Apex Development, that needed an audit before a major acquisition. Standard due diligence work. I'd done hundreds of these, except this one was different. By noon, I'd found the first discrepancy, $50,000 moving through a subsidiary that didn't match any legitimate project. By 3, I'd traced it to a pattern. By 6, I'd uncovered a web of phantom transactions totaling $8 million over 18 months, all laundered through fake invoices and non-existent contractors. My hands trembled as I compiled the evidence. This wasn't embezzlement or tax fraud. This was organized crime, the kind of operation that required serious infrastructure and serious protection. The money flowed in from sources I couldn't identify, got cleaned through Apex's books, and emerged as legitimate business income. I should have called the FBI immediately. That's what any sensible person would have done. Instead, I made the catastrophic mistake of calling my client contact, a man named Travis Carver who'd seemed so professional during our initial meeting. I wanted to give him a chance to explain before I reported it. Maybe convinced myself there was some legitimate explanation I'd missed. Mr. Carver, it's Tessa Morgan. I found some serious irregularities in Apex's financial records. We need to meet immediately. The silence on the other end lasted too long. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost all its earlier warmth. What kind of irregularities? The kind that involve federal crimes. I'm legally obligated to report this, but I wanted to speak with you first. Another pause. Of course. Let's meet tonight. Say, 9 o'clock? I'll come to you. We should discuss this privately before it goes any further. I gave him my address, relief washing over me. Professional courtesy, that's all this was. We'd sort it out. 3 hours later, I realized how catastrophically wrong I'd been. The knock came at 8:47 p.m., 13 minutes early. I was still organizing my files when I opened the door, expecting Travis's middle-aged face and expensive suit. Instead, 2 men I'd never seen before stood in my doorway, broad-shouldered, dead-eyed, with the kind of stillness that predators have before they strike. Tessa Morgan? The taller one's voice was flat, professional. Yes? Where's Mr. Carver? They were inside before I could scream, one hand clamping over my mouth while the other shoved me backward into my apartment. I fought instinctively, clawing at the arm around my face, but it was like fighting stone. Where are the files? The tall one's breath smelled like cigarettes and mint. All copies. Now. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Terror flooded every nerve as I pointed desperately toward my laptop on the dining table. The shorter man moved toward it while his partner held me immobile. Encrypted, the shorter one reported after a moment. We need the password. The hand left my mouth. I gasped for air, mind racing. I don't have them anymore. I already sent everything to the FBI. You're too late. It was a desperate lie, and they knew it. The first punch caught me in the stomach, driving all air from my lungs. I collapsed, retching, and then there was only pain. Systematic, efficient, designed to hurt without killing too quickly. They wanted information, but more than that, they wanted to send a message about what happened to people who looked too closely at the wrong numbers. I don't remember when I stopped screaming. I remember the taste of blood, the crack of my ribs, the way my vision tunneled to gray. I remember thinking about my sister in Portland, about how she'd identify my body, about all the things I'd never get to do. I remember one of them pulling out a phone. It's done. What do you want us to do with her? A voice on the other end, too distant to make out words. Copy that. Brennan's warehouse. Hands grabbed me, and the world went black. When consciousness returned, it came in fragments. The smell of leather, the hum of an engine, voices arguing in the front seat. I was in a car, lying across the back seat, every inch of my body screaming. I tried to move and whimpered at the pain. "She's awake," one of them said. "Doesn't matter. Another 10 minutes and it's not our problem anymore." I forced my eyes open, saw the Seattle skyline passing by through tinted windows. We were heading south, toward the industrial district, toward whatever fate they'd planned for inconvenient forensic accountants who found things they shouldn't have. Terror gave me clarity. I was going to die unless I did something, and I had nothing left to lose. My hand found the door handle. The car was moving at maybe 40 miles per hour, fast enough to kill me, but death was coming anyway. At least this way, I'd choose it. I yanked the handle and threw myself sideways with the last of my strength. The world became a chaos of shouting, screeching brakes, and asphalt rising to meet me. Pain exploded across my shoulder as I hit the ground and rolled, the momentum carrying me across the road. Horns blared, tires squealed. I ended up against a curb, barely conscious, tasting blood and exhaust fumes. Through blurred vision, I saw the car stopped in the middle of the intersection, doors opening, my attackers getting out. Then another car appeared, sleek, black, expensive. It stopped between us, and men emerged from it, moving with the kind of coordinated precision that spoke of serious training. One of them wore a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Even through my fading consciousness, I registered his presence. Tall, dark-haired, with a face carved from granite, and eyes like winter steel. He looked at my attackers, then at me, crumpled against the curb, and something dangerous flickered across his features. "Whose authority?" His voice cut through the night, cold and absolute. My attackers hesitated. "Travis Carver's orders. She found... Travis Carver doesn't give orders in my city." The man in the suit took one step forward, just one. But something about it made both attackers step back. This woman, what did she do? Forensic accountant, found the Apex operation. The man's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He looked at me again, and for a moment, our eyes met. I saw recognition there. Not of me specifically, but of what had been done to me. "Take her to my office," he said quietly. "Medical team, immediately. As for you two, Silas will handle your debriefing." The last thing I saw before darkness took me again was his face, angular and merciless, as he crouched beside me. His hand touched my forehead with surprising gentleness. "You're safe now," he said, though I had no idea if that was true. Then there was only black, and the distant sound of sirens, and the peculiar floating sensation of being carried by steady hands into a vehicle that smelled like leather and expensive cologne. I'd spent my life finding truth in numbers, in ledgers where everything balanced and made sense. Nothing about tonight made sense. But somewhere in the darkness, as consciousness slipped away completely, I understood that my life had just tilted into a world where different rules applied, where the monsters weren't always the ones you expected, and where salvation might come from the most dangerous source of all. I woke to luxury and pain in equal measure. The room swam into focus slowly. High ceilings, dark wood paneling, furniture that belonged in an art museum. Soft lighting cast everything in warm amber, and through floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see Seattle's skyline glittering against the night. Definitely not a hospital. Definitely not anywhere I'd ever been before. My body felt like it had been reassembled wrong, every breath a reminder of broken ribs. I was in a massive bed with Egyptian cotton sheets, wearing clothes that weren't mine, a soft silk nightshirt that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Someone had cleaned the blood from my skin and bandaged my wounds with professional precision. "Don't try to sit up." The voice came from the shadows near the window, smooth and commanding. "You have 3 cracked ribs, a fractured wrist, significant bruising, and a mild concussion. My doctor advised complete rest." I turned my head carefully and found him. The man from the intersection, though seeing him in proper light made my breath catch for reasons that had nothing to do with my injuries. He sat in a leather chair with the stillness of a predator at rest, one hand holding a crystal tumbler of amber liquid. In the low light, his features were all sharp angles and controlled power, the the kind of face that launched ships and ended lives with equal efficiency. He looked like Sin dressed in a three-piece suit. "Who are you?" My voice came out rough, throat raw from screaming. "Tristan Blackwood." He said it like I should recognize the name, and somewhere in my pain-fogged memory, I did. I'd seen it before, buried deep in Apex's corporate structure. A silent partner, a shadow investor, the kind of name that appeared in documents but never on actual records. Holy hell. I'd found evidence of money laundering for the actual head of Seattle's criminal empire. Terror must have shown on my face because something flickered in his expression. Not quite amusement, but close. "Yes, that Tristan Blackwood. Though I suspect you've already deduced as much, given your profession." He took a sip of his drink, eyes never leaving mine. "Tell me, Miss Morgan, do you make a habit of investigating people who could have you killed?" "I make a habit of finding the truth." The words came out sharper than I intended, whether people like it or not. For the first time, his mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. Admirable. Stupid, but admirable. He set down his glass and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Those men who hurt you. They acted without my authorization. In my organization, violence against civilians, particularly women, requires explicit approval. They deviated from protocol. Is that supposed to make me feel better? You run a criminal enterprise." "I run many enterprises, Miss Morgan, some less legal than others. But I have rules, and when those rules are broken, there are consequences." His voice went cold. Travis Carver gave orders he had no authority to give. He used my resources to clean up his own mess. A mess created by his sloppy bookkeeping that you unfortunately discovered. I processed this carefully, every instinct screaming that I was in a tiger's cage trying to logic my way out. "So you're saying, what? This wasn't your fault?" "I'm saying that if I'd wanted you dead, you'd have died cleanly, professionally, and your body would never be found. Not beaten half to death and dumped like garbage." He stood, moving to the window with lethal grace. "I don't tolerate chaos, Miss Morgan, and I especially don't tolerate men who exceed their authority and create problems for me." "Problems?" I tried to laugh, but it hurt too much. "I'm a problem now?" He turned back, and the look in his eyes made my heart stutter. There was darkness there, yes, but also something unexpected, a kind of cold fury that wasn't directed at me. "You're a witness to incompetence and betrayal within my organization. That makes you dangerous." He paused. "But you're also an innocent woman who nearly died because of decisions I should have caught sooner. That makes you my responsibility." "I don't want to be anyone's responsibility. I want to go home, call the police, and what?" He crossed his arms. "Tell them you found evidence of money laundering, were brutally beaten by unknown assailants, and then saved by Seattle's most notorious crime boss. How do you think that story ends for you?" I had no answer. He was right, and we both knew it. "Travis will clean up loose ends," Tristan continued quietly. "Your files, your apartment, anyone you might have told. He's thorough when he's scared. And right now, he's terrified because he knows I'm looking for him." "You're going to kill him." "Eventually. First, I need to understand the full scope of his operation, what else he's been doing behind my back, who he's been working with. Travis wasn't smart enough to set up that Apex scheme alone." Tristan walked to a side table, poured water from a crystal pitcher. He brought it to me, holding it steady while I drank. The casual intimacy of the gesture felt surreal. "You found one thread, Miss Morgan. I need to know where it leads." I finished the water, mind racing despite the pain. "You want me to help you?" "I want to offer you a choice." He sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. "You can stay here under my protection while I hunt Travis and clean up this mess. You'll be safe, comfortable, and when it's over, I'll ensure you can resume your life without fear of retaliation. Or I can give you money, new identification, and transportation to anywhere you want to go. Start over somewhere Travis can't find you." His eyes held mine. "But understand, if you run, you'll always be running. Travis has connections beyond my organization. He'll be looking for you until one of us is dead." It wasn't really a choice at all. We both knew it. "How long?" I asked quietly. "A week, maybe 2. Depends how quickly I can draw him out." Tristan stood, buttoning his suit jacket with practiced precision. "My doctor will check on you in the morning. You have full access to this suite. Bedroom, bathroom, sitting room. Anything you need, use the phone. Someone will get it for you." "Am I a prisoner?" He paused at the door, hand on the frame. When he looked back, something in his expression made my chest tighten. "No, Miss Morgan. You're a guest. An inconvenient one, perhaps, but a guest nonetheless." He hesitated, as if choosing his next words carefully. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Sorry that my organization hurt you. Sorry that you got caught in something that should never have touched you." Before I could respond, he was gone, the door clicking shut with quiet finality. I lay back against the pillows, staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything. 3 days ago, I'd been a normal forensic accountant with a mundane life and predictable problems. Now I was lying in a mobster's headquarters, beaten and broken, while said mobster hunted down his own people for hurting me. The absurdity should have made me laugh. Instead, I found myself thinking about the way Tristan had looked at me, not with the predatory interest I'd expected, but with something almost like regret, as if my pain personally offended him. I'd spent my career following money trails, understanding that numbers never lied. But people were infinitely more complicated. And Tristan Blackwood might be the most complicated equation I'd ever encountered. Sleep came eventually, dragging me under despite my racing thoughts. I dreamed of ledgers that bled, of numbers that rearranged themselves into warnings, of a man with winter eyes standing between me and darkness. When I woke again, morning light was streaming through the windows, and an elegant woman in medical scrubs was checking my vitals with professional efficiency. "Good morning, Miss Morgan. I'm Dr. Chen. How's the pain?" "Manageable." It was a lie. She smiled knowingly and adjusted my IV. When had that been placed? "Mr. Blackwood instructed me to keep you comfortable. I'm going to give you something for the pain, and I'll be checking on you every few hours." Is this normal for him? Taking in strays? Dr. Chen's expression went carefully neutral. Mr. Blackwood has very specific principles about honor and protection. When he gives his word, he keeps it. You're safe here, Miss Morgan. I'd stake my medical license on it. She left after administering pain medication, and I drifted in a haze of pharmaceutical comfort, my thoughts loosening. Somewhere beyond this room, Tristan was hunting the man who'd tried to kill me. Somewhere, my normal life was being dismantled by Travis's cleanup crew. But here, in this moment, wrapped in expensive sheets with medicine dulling my pain, I felt something I had no right to feel. Safe. I fell asleep thinking about the dangerous man who'd saved me, and wondering if you could trust someone who lived in darkness. The answer, I was beginning to realize, was far more complicated than any ledger I'd ever balanced. By the third day, I could walk without crying. Dr. Chen had done excellent work. My ribs were taped, my wrist properly set, and the bruises had evolved from purple to that sickly yellow-green that meant healing. I spent hours staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching Seattle move below, feeling like Rapunzel in a tower made of crime and luxury goods. Tristan visited every evening, always arriving after dark, always carrying that aura of controlled danger. He'd sit in his chair by the window, nurse his whiskey, and we'd talk. Not about business. Never about Travis or the hunt I knew was happening beyond these walls. Instead, we talked about art, about music, about the books lining his shelves. It was disturbingly easy to forget what he was. Mozart or Beethoven? He asked on the fourth night, refilling his glass from the crystal decanter. For what purpose? I was curled in the window seat, wrapped in a cashmere throw that probably cost more than my car. For understanding the nature of genius. Mozart was pure instinct. Music flowed from him like water. Beethoven was all discipline and rage, forcing beauty from chaos. I considered this, surprised to find myself actually engaged. Beethoven. Mozart was brilliant, but Beethoven made you feel something. He understood suffering. Spoken like someone who survived something. Tristan's eyes found mine across the dimly lit room. Tell me, Miss Morgan, what made you become a forensic accountant? Most people don't wake up dreaming of tracking other people's money. My father was an accountant, a legitimate one. I smiled at the memory. He used to say numbers never lie, even when people do. After he died, I wanted to continue his work, finding truth where people tried to hide it. A crusader with a calculator. Better than a criminal with expensive taste. He laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his face from dangerous to devastating. Touché, though I'd argue my taste is what separates me from common thugs. Is that what you tell yourself? That good cologne and Italian suits make you different from the men who beat me? The laughter died. Tristan set down his glass with careful precision. No. What makes me different is that I would never have authorized what happened to you. In my organization, there are lines we don't cross. Honor among thieves? Something like that. He stood, walking to the window beside me. This close, I could smell his cologne, see the fine lines around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and hard decisions. My father built this empire on brutality and fear. When I took over, I changed things. We don't hurt civilians. We don't target families. We don't operate near schools or hospitals. We have rules. Noble for a mobster. Pragmatic for a businessman. He looked down at the city lights. Fear is useful, but loyalty is stronger. People work for me because I protect them, because I'm fair, because they know I keep my word. That's worth more than any amount of intimidation. I studied his profile, this contradiction of a man. You still hurt people. Yes, people who know the game they're playing, who've made their choices. He turned, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. But never innocents. Never civilians who stumbled into something accidentally. That's not business, Miss Morgan. That's chaos, and I don't allow chaos. We stood there in the darkness, the city glittering below, and something shifted between us. It had been building all week. A tension that had nothing to do with my captivity, and everything to do with the way he looked at me, the way my pulse jumped when he entered the room. Your ribs are healing well, he said quietly. Dr. Chen says another week before I'm fully mobile. And then I figure out what's left of my life. I pulled the throw tighter. Travis has probably destroyed everything by now. Not everything. Tristan reached into his jacket, pulled out a flash drive. Your files, all of them. I had my IT specialist recover them from your apartment before Travis's people could wipe everything. I took it with shaking hands. Why would you give me this? Because they're yours. Because you earned them. He paused. And because when this is over, you might need leverage to rebuild your reputation. The gesture was so unexpected, so unlike what I'd assumed about him, that I didn't know how to respond. He was a criminal, yes, but he was also protecting me, respecting my work, treating me with more consideration than many legitimate businessmen had shown. Travis made his move today, Tristan said, changing the subject. Tried to liquidate assets and run. We intercepted him at SeaTac. My heart stuttered. Is he alive, for now, being questioned about who else was involved in the Apex scheme? Tristan's expression went hard. He's been embezzling from my operations for 2 years, using his position as financial advisor to skim millions. Apex was just one front. There are others. How many? We're still counting. He turned back to the window. The irony is, if he'd just done his job properly, you never would have found anything. His sloppiness exposed everything. I thought about that, about how my near-death experience had been born from one man's greed and incompetence, about how differently things might have gone. What happens to him? That depends on what he tells me. Tristan's voice went cold. But Miss Morgan, I want to be clear. What happens to Travis isn't your concern. You've been hurt enough by this situation. When he's dealt with, I'll ensure you're protected. New identity if you want it, relocation assistance, financial security, whatever you need to move forward. You're offering me a payoff. I'm offering you a future, He met my eyes. One where you're not looking over your shoulder, not afraid every time someone knocks on your door. Travis had connections in law enforcement, in city government. Even with him gone, there will be loose ends. Let me tie them up. It was a generous offer. More than generous. But something in me rebelled against accepting charity from a criminal, no matter how elegant his justifications. What if I don't want to run? What if I want to rebuild my business here? Then you'll need protection, security, a shield between you and anyone who might see you as a liability or a threat. Tristan moved closer, and I was trapped between him and the window, his presence overwhelming. I can provide that, but it means staying in my world, at least partially, being known as someone under my protection. That's not really freedom, is it? No, he admitted. It's not. But it's survival, and sometimes that's the best we can hope for. We were inches apart now, his breath warm on my face, my heart hammering against my healing ribs. I should have been terrified. Every rational part of my brain screamed warnings about Stockholm Syndrome, about the danger of this man, about how wrong it was to feel what I was feeling. But I'd spent my life following logic, and logic had nearly gotten me killed. Tristan, I whispered, using his first name for the first time. His eyes darkened. Yes? If I stay, what does that make me? Smart. Pragmatic. He raised one hand, fingers hovering near my cheek but not quite touching. Brave enough to accept that the world isn't as simple as ledgers and balance sheets. Or it makes me complicit. Perhaps. His hand dropped. But Miss Morgan, we're all complicit in something. The question is whether we're complicit in systems we can't control, or whether we make conscious choices about where we stand. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it, and something in his expression changed. Satisfaction mixed with cold purpose. Travis is ready to talk. He stepped back, the moment broken. I need to handle this. Dr. Chen will check on you before bed. He was at the door before I found my voice. Tristan? He paused, hand on the doorframe, exactly like that first night. Thank you, for saving me, for all of this. When he looked back, his expression was unreadable. Don't thank me yet, Tessa. This isn't over. Then he was gone, and I was alone with my thoughts and the city lights and the dangerous realization that somewhere along the way, I'd stopped seeing Tristan Blackwood as my captor and started seeing him as something far more complicated. Something that scared me more than any beating ever could, because I was starting to care about the monster in the expensive suit. And that, more than anything else that had happened, might be the thing that destroyed me completely. The gunshot woke me at 2 a.m. I sat up too fast, ribs screaming protest, heart hammering as footsteps thundered past my door. Shouting echoed through the building, controlled but urgent, the kind of organized chaos that spoke of people trained for violence suddenly using that training. Then silence, thick and terrible. I was reaching for my phone. Tristan had given me one for emergencies, when my door slammed open. A man I'd never seen before stood in the doorway, gun drawn, face cold. Come with me. Now. Every instinct screamed danger, but I recognized the alternative. If he'd wanted me dead, I'd already be dead. I wrapped the cashmere throw around my nightshirt and followed him into the hallway on shaking legs. The building's elegant corridor had transformed into a war zone. 2 men lay motionless near the elevator. I didn't look closely enough to see if they were breathing. Blood marked the expensive carpet in dark streaks. My escort moved fast, one hand gripping my arm, the other holding his weapon ready. We took a service stairwell down 3 flights, emerged into what looked like a private garage. A black SUV idled nearby, rear door open. Tristan stood beside it, jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled up, blood on his hands and a look on his face that made my breath stop. This was the man I'd heard about in whispers, the one Seattle's underworld feared. Raw, dangerous, absolutely lethal. Get her out of here, he ordered my escort. Take her to the Bellevue safe house, full security protocol. Wait, I tried to pull free. What's happening? Travis escaped. Tristan's voice was ice. He had help. Someone inside my organization gave him access to the building and apparently thought attacking my headquarters was a good strategy. I'm not leaving without understanding. He was in front of me in 2 strides, hands gripping my shoulders, eyes burning with an intensity that made me forget how to breathe. Listen to me very carefully, Tessa. Travis isn't running anymore. He's coming for you. For me. For anyone connected to the Apex investigation. He's desperate, and desperate men are unpredictable. His fingers tightened. I need you safe while I end this. Please. The please broke something in me. This man who commanded empires and crushed enemies was asking, not ordering. Okay, I whispered. Relief flickered across his features. He released me, stepped back. Silas will keep you safe. I'll come for you when it's over. And if you don't come back... Something almost like a smile touched his mouth. Then Silas has instructions to get you out of the country with enough money to start over anywhere you want. You'll be free, Tessa. Either way. Before I could respond, he turned away, barking orders at the men gathering around him. Silas, the man who'd collected me, guided me into the SUV, and then we were moving, tires squealing as we rocketed out of the garage into Seattle's pre-dawn darkness. I watched through the tinted windows as the city blurred past, my mind racing. Somewhere out there, Travis was hunting me, and Tristan was hunting him. 2 predators circling each other, and I was somehow the prize neither could afford to lose. The Bellevue safe house turned out to be a luxury condo with enough security equipment to guard Fort Knox. Silas stationed 3 men outside and gave me curt instructions about staying away from windows before leaving me alone in pristine, impersonal comfort. Hours crawled past. I tried to sleep, to read, to distract myself. Nothing worked. All I could think about was Tristan somewhere in the city, facing down betrayal and violence because of an investigation I'd started. My phone buzzed at noon. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Miss Morgan. The voice was smooth, cultured, and sent ice down my spine. We haven't been properly introduced. I'm Travis Carver. My hand tightened on the phone. How did you get this number? I have resources you can't imagine, and I have a proposition. He paused. You give me every copy of your Apex investigation, every file, every piece of evidence. In return, I disappear and you never hear from me again. You tried to have me killed. A misunderstanding. My associates were overzealous. His tone suggested he was smiling. But you've seen what Tristan Blackwood is capable of now. You understand what he is. Do you really want to be caught in this war? What makes you think I have a choice? Because I'm offering you one. Meet me. Alone. Just you and me. Bring the files. Walk away free. His voice dropped. Or stay with Tristan and watch him destroy everything in his path to get to me, including eventually you. He's protecting me. He's using you as bait, Miss Morgan. You're the one thing he knows I need eliminated. As long as you're alive, you're evidence. He's counting on me making a mistake trying to get to you. The words hit harder because they contained a kernel of possible truth. Was I protection or bait? Salvation or strategy? I'll text you a location, Travis continued. 1 hour. Come alone, bring the files, and this ends. Or don't, and see how long Tristan's protection lasts when things get truly ugly. The call ended. I sat frozen, mind spinning. Travis was right about one thing. I was caught between 2 dangerous men, and neither was being completely honest about their motives. Tristan wanted Travis dead. Travis wanted me dead, or at least silenced. Neither outcome involved me actually being safe, unless I changed the game. I pulled out the flash drive Tristan had given me, the one with all my files. Insurance, he'd called it. Leverage. Maybe it was time to use it. 40 minutes later, I was in Silas's SUV. I'd convinced the guards I needed medication from a specific pharmacy, played up the pain in my ribs, made myself seem helpless until they agreed to an escort. The pharmacy was real. The errand was not. While Silas's man waited in the car, I slipped out the pharmacy's back entrance and caught a cab. The driver looked concerned about my bruises, but accepted my cash without questions. Travis's location was an industrial building near the docks. Exposed. Public enough that neither Tristan nor Travis would risk obvious violence. Smart on his part. I had the flash drive in my pocket and a plan that was either brilliant or suicidal. Probably suicidal. Travis waited by a black sedan, looking every inch the successful businessman in his tailored suit. Nothing about him suggested the monster who'd ordered my death. "Miss Morgan, I'm impressed. I wasn't sure you'd come. I want this over." I stayed 10 feet back, hand in my pocket. "You said you'd leave if I gave you the files." "Of course. A fair exchange." He extended his hand. "The drive?" "Not yet. First, you're going to transfer $5 million to an account I specify. Call it compensation for attempted murder." His expression hardened. "That wasn't our deal." "The deal changed." I pulled out my phone. "Because while you were planning this meeting, I sent copies of everything to 3 different investigative journalists. If I don't send them a cancellation code in the next hour, everything about Apex goes public. Your operation, your connections, every detail I found." "You're bluffing. Try me." I held his gaze. $5 million, a guaranteed clean exit for both of us, or we all burn together. Your choice. Travis's jaw worked. He was calculating odds, weighing options. Finally, he pulled out his phone. Account number. I'd barely finished reciting it when I heard the distinctive click of a gun being cocked behind me. "Clever, Miss Morgan." Tristan's voice was cold silk. "But did you really think I wouldn't track your phone?" I turned slowly. He stood 20 feet away, flanked by 4 men, all armed. His expression was absolutely unreadable. "Tristan, I can explain. You made a deal with the man who tried to kill you. Used the files I gave you as leverage. Risked everything I've been working toward." He took 1 step forward. "Why?" "Because I'm tired of being a chess piece." The words burst out. "You're both playing games with my life. At least this way, I get something out of it." Travis moved, reaching for his own weapon. But Tristan's men were faster. Within seconds, Travis was on his knees, gun kicked away, hands behind his head. "You're making a mistake," Travis spat. "I have evidence of every crime Blackwood's committed. Kill me, and it all goes to the FBI." Empty threats from a dead man. Tristan handed his gun to Silas and walked forward until he stood between Travis and me. "You had one chance to disappear quietly. You chose war." He looked at me, and something in his eyes made my chest ache. "And you, Tessa, what am I supposed to do with you?" "Let me go," I whispered. "Give me the $5 million and a clean exit. That's all I want." "That's all?" He stepped closer, voice dropping. "Nothing else?" We stared at each other, and I realized with stunning clarity that he knew. He'd always known. This wasn't about protection or strategy or leverage. Somewhere along the way, in that luxury suite with evening conversations and whiskey, I'd become something more to him. Something he wasn't willing to sacrifice. The question was whether I felt the same. Travis lunged, pulling a backup weapon from his ankle holster, and everything exploded into chaos. The gunshot echoed across the dock, time fragmenting into slow-motion chaos. Travis's backup weapon cleared its holster, barrel swinging toward me, and I knew with absolute certainty I was about to die. Again. This time there'd be no mysterious savior, no last-second rescue, just blood and concrete, and the end of a life barely lived. Except Tristan moved like liquid violence, his body colliding with mine, taking us both down as the bullet screamed through the space my head had occupied a heartbeat before. We hit the ground hard, my ribs shrieked protest, and then Tristan was covering me, one arm wrapped around my body, the other extending his weapon with professional precision. 3 shots, precise, controlled, final. Travis Carver crumpled, the backup gun clattering away, his expensive suit blooming red across the chest. His eyes went wide with surprise, then empty. Just like that, it was over. "Clear," one of Tristan's men called out, weapon trained on Travis's corpse. Another checked for a pulse, shook his head. Tristan didn't move, his weight still pressing me into the cold concrete, his breath harsh against my ear. "Are you hurt?" "No, I don't think so." My voice shook. "You can get up now." He did, but slowly, reluctantly, as if letting me go required physical effort. His hand found mine, pulled me to my feet with surprising gentleness. Blood stained his shirt, not his, I realized with relief, but splatter from Travis. Silas, cleanup protocol. I want this site scrubbed and sanitized within the hour. Tristan's voice held absolute command despite everything. Witness statements aligned with legitimate self-defense narrative. Legal team on standby. His men moved with practiced efficiency, and I understood this wasn't Tristan's first time orchestrating a crime scene's transformation into something legally defensible. Years of practice showed in every coordinated movement. Come on. Tristan's hand stayed on my arm, guiding me toward his car. We need to get you looked at. I'm fine, just bruised. You're in shock. He opened the passenger door, practically lifted me inside. And I need to know exactly what the hell you were thinking coming here alone. The drive back to his headquarters passed in tense silence. I could feel him radiating controlled fury, see the muscle ticking in his jaw, sense the questions building behind his carefully blank expression. When we arrived, he bypassed the elevator where the earlier violence had occurred, taking a private staircase to his penthouse suite. Not my recovery room, his personal space. It was all dark wood and leather, masculine and expensive, and utterly him. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined one wall. A massive desk dominated another, and through open double doors I glimpsed a bedroom that belonged in an architectural magazine. Sit. Tristan pointed to a leather sofa, then moved to a bar cart and poured 2 glasses of whiskey. He handed me one, downed his own in a single swallow, and poured another. I sipped carefully, the burn grounding me. Are you going to yell? I don't yell. I do, however, require an explanation. He remained standing, looming over me, all coiled tension. You went to meet Travis alone after I explicitly told you I'd handle it. You used the files I gave you, files I trusted you with, as leverage for your own escape. You put yourself in the exact situation I've been trying to prevent. Because I needed control. The words burst out. For over a week, I've been passed between men making decisions about my life. Travis wanted me dead. You wanted me protected. Nobody asked what I wanted. So you decided to negotiate with your attempted murderer? I decided to take my life back. I stood, ribs protesting, and faced him. You said you'd give me freedom when this was over. I was speeding up the timeline. By nearly getting yourself killed. Again. Tristan set down his glass with carefully controlled force. Do you have any idea what it was like tracking your phone, realizing where you'd gone, knowing I might be too late? Something in his voice stopped my anger cold. There was more than fury there. There was fear. Tristan. I've built this empire on control, Tessa, on managing variables, calculating risks, always staying 3 steps ahead. He moved closer, and I saw the cracks in his facade. And then you stumbled into my world and every calculation went out the window. You were supposed to be simple, a witness to protect, a problem to solve. What am I now? He looked at me then, really looked, and the intensity made my breath catch. Something infinitely more complicated. We stood in the charged silence, Seattle glittering beyond the windows, the taste of whiskey and danger on my tongue. Every rational thought screamed warnings about what I was about to do. I ignored them all and closed the distance between us. Tessa. My name on his lips was half warning, half prayer. If we do this, everything changes. Everything already changed. I reached up, fingers finding the blood-spattered collar of his shirt. The moment you saved me, the moment I started seeing you as more than the monster everyone warned me about. His hand came up, cupping my jaw with surprising tenderness. I am that monster. Don't mistake a code of honor for goodness. I've done things that would horrify you, ordered deaths, destroyed lives, built my empire on fear and blood. I know what you are. I met his eyes. But I also know you protect your people. You have lines you won't cross. You keep your word. You've shown me more consideration than most legitimate businessmen ever have. That's a remarkably low bar. Maybe. Or maybe morality isn't as black and white as I thought. My hand slid up to his neck. Maybe the man who saved me, who's been protecting me, who looked genuinely afraid I might die. Maybe he deserves a chance. A chance at what? At this. And I kissed him. For one heartbeat, he froze, surprise evident in his stillness. Then he responded with a hunger that stole my breath, one arm wrapping around my waist, the other sliding into my hair, careful of my injuries even in his intensity. The kiss deepened, months of tension and danger, an unexpected connection exploding into this perfect, terrible moment. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. "This is a mistake," he whispered. "Probably. You could still leave, take the money, disappear, build a safe, normal life far from me." I could. I traced the line of his jaw. But I've spent my whole life being careful, following rules, staying in safe boundaries. Where did it get me? Nearly killed by someone else's corruption. And I'm so much safer? No. But at least with you, I'm choosing the danger. I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. I'm choosing you, Tristan, not because you saved me or because I'm confused or traumatized, but because somewhere between that first night and now, I started trusting you, started caring about you. Tessa, I want to stay. Not as your obligation or your protected witness, as your partner. The words felt right as I said them. I'm a forensic accountant, and you run a criminal empire. I could be useful. I could help you keep the books clean, watch for another Travis, ensure your operations don't attract unwanted attention. He stared at me like I'd suggested flying to the moon. You want to work for me? With you, there's a difference. I smiled despite everything. You said I was smart, pragmatic, brave enough to accept that the world isn't simple. Prove you meant it. Let me choose this life, these risks. You. If you do this, there's no going back. You become part of my world, the danger, the secrecy, the compromises. You'll have blood on your hands eventually, even if you never pull a trigger. I know. And I did. I'd spent the past week understanding exactly what I was considering, weighing the costs against an undeniable truth. I'd never felt more alive than in the past 10 days. Never felt more seen, more challenged, more genuinely cared for than by this dangerous, complicated man who'd saved my life and changed everything. Tristan studied my face, searching for doubt or fear. Whatever he saw there made something in his expression soften. You're absolutely certain? Yes. He kissed me again, slower this time, thorough and claiming and full of promise. When he pulled back, the smile on his face was genuine. Not the cold mask he showed the world, but something real and almost vulnerable. Then welcome to the darkness, Tessa Morgan. He took my hand, pressed a kiss to my knuckles. I promise it's more interesting than you expect. I'm counting on it. We stood there as the sun set over Seattle, two people who should never have met, never have understood each other, never have fallen into this impossible connection. But numbers never lie, and the equation was clear. Tristan Blackwood plus Tessa Morgan equaled something neither of us had expected, but both of us desperately needed. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't afraid of the answer. 3 months later, I sat in Tristan's office, our office now, reviewing quarterly reports while autumn rain hammered against the windows. The view hadn't changed, but everything else had. I'd moved into the penthouse officially 6 weeks ago, my few remaining possessions from my old life integrated into Tristan's space with surprising ease. Dr. Chen had pronounced me fully healed a month back, though the scars remained, thin white lines across my ribs, a slight catch in my breathing when the weather changed. Reminders that I'd survived. More than survived. I'd transformed. These numbers don't match. I highlighted a discrepancy in the shipping manifests, spinning the laptop toward Tristan where he sat across the desk. Someone's skimming from the port commission contracts. He leaned forward, scanning the data with practiced efficiency. Since taking over as his financial advisor, a title that made his legitimate accountant roll his eyes, but ensured everyone knew I had authority, I'd discovered I was remarkably good at cleaning money, Turned out forensic accounting skills translated perfectly to ensuring criminal enterprises stayed profitable and invisible. "How much?" Tristan asked. "Approximately $200K over 6 months. Small enough to miss in routine audits, but definitely deliberate." I pulled up another screen. "The pattern suggests someone with access to distribution schedules. I'd look at your logistics managers." "Good catch." He made a note, then looked at me with that expression that still made my heart skip. Pride, mixed with something deeper. "You've identified 4 potential leaks in 3 months. At this rate, I'll need to give you a raise." "I accept payment in excellent dinners and continued survival." He smiled, the genuine one reserved for private moments. Both easily arranged. A knock interrupted us. Silas entered, his perpetual scowl softening slightly when he saw me. He'd been skeptical at first. Most of Tristan's inner circle had been. But I'd won him over by identifying a vulnerability in their security protocols that could have gotten Tristan killed. "The Riverside deal closed," Silas reported. "Contracts signed, payment transferred, properties transferred to the shell companies Miss Morgan established." "Tessa," I corrected. "We've been through this. Miss Morgan makes me sound like a 1950s schoolteacher." Old habits, but there was almost fondness in his tone. "The team wanted me to thank you for the cleaner structuring, much simpler than Travis's complicated nightmare. After Travis's death, I'd spent weeks untangling his web of fraud and embezzlement. We'd recovered about $8 million he'd siphoned, identified 3 of his co-conspirators, and restructured the entire financial apparatus to prevent future theft. Tristan's empire had never been more profitable or more secure. I'd also ensured our legitimate businesses, and yes, there were several, operated with actual integrity. Real estate developments, import, export companies, security consulting. Revenue streams that could withstand scrutiny because they were genuinely legal. Tristan had initially been amused by my insistence on legitimacy where possible, until he saw the tax benefits. "The city council vote is tomorrow," Silas continued. "Your contribution should ensure the waterfront development passes." I'd learned quickly that Tristan's influence extended beyond crime. Political contributions, infrastructure projects, community development. He shaped Seattle from the shadows, and I helped ensure those influences left positive marks alongside the darker ones. A new community center in a struggling neighborhood, scholarships for kids who'd never afford college, small redemptions that didn't erase the harm, but at least balanced the scales slightly. After Silas left, Tristan came around the desk and pulled me to my feet, hands settling on my hips. "You know what I realized today?" he said quietly. "That I'm indispensable, and you should pay me more. That 3 months ago I was alone in this office planning Travis's interrogation. Today I'm sharing it with someone who understands my work, challenges my decisions, and makes this all feel less." He paused, searching for words. Less hollow. I wrapped my arms around his neck. "Careful, Tristan. You're dangerously close to expressing actual emotions. A terrible habit I've developed." He kissed my forehead. "Your influence is corrupting my fearsome reputation. Your reputation is secure, though I hear the rumor mill has interesting theories about us. Let them theorize." His arms tightened. "You're mine, Tessa. Anyone with sense knows it." The possessiveness should have bothered me. Instead, it made me feel safer than any protection detail ever could. I was his, yes, but he was equally mine. This complicated, dangerous man who'd shown me that morality lived in shades of gray, that love could exist even in darkness. My phone buzzed with a reminder. "We have dinner with the Chens in an hour." Dr. Chen and her husband had become unlikely friends, proof that my new life wasn't entirely isolated. I'd also reconnected with my sister in Portland, carefully, with sanitized explanations about my consulting work for a private security firm. She was suspicious, but accepted my deflections, mostly because I seemed happier than she'd seen me in years, because I was. As Tristan and I prepared to leave, I caught our reflection in the office windows, him in his perpetual 3-piece suit, me in elegant professional attire that suggested competence and confidence. We looked like any successful couple. No hint of the empire we managed or the compromises we'd made. "Do you regret it?" Tristan asked suddenly. This life? These choices? I considered the question honestly. I'd spent weeks examining my conscience, ensuring Stockholm Syndrome or trauma bonding hadn't warped my judgment. But the truth was simpler and more complex than psychology could explain. I regret that Travis's violence brought us together, I said carefully. I regret every person you've hurt, every life damaged by this empire. But do I regret choosing you? Choosing this? I turned to face him. No, this is the first time in my life I've felt truly alive, truly essential, truly seen for everything I am. Even the parts that now help run criminal enterprises? Especially those parts. I straightened his tie. You were right that first night. I'm not innocent anymore. But I'm not destroyed either. I'm something new. Something forged from violence and survival and unexpected love. He kissed me then, deep and claiming, a promise and a possession all at once. When we broke apart, his eyes held that rare vulnerability he only showed me. I love you, he said simply. I didn't think I was capable of it until you crashed into my world and rearranged everything. I love you too. The words came easily now, truth without reservation. My beautiful monster. Your monster, he agreed. Always. We left the office hand in hand, descending into the city where we existed in two worlds simultaneously. Legitimate and criminal, light and shadow, the careful balance we learned to maintain. Tristan Blackwood's empire continued its operations, but now with cleaner books, smarter strategies, and a partner who ensured survival through intelligence, rather than just intimidation. I'd started as an accountant looking for truth in numbers. I'd found something more valuable. Truth about myself, about the complexity of morality, about how love could exist even in the darkest places if you were brave enough to reach for it. The rain continued falling on Seattle, washing away sins and secrets alike, and I stood beside the most dangerous man I'd ever met, knowing I'd made the right choice. Because some equations didn't balance on paper, they balanced in your heart, and mine had never felt more complete. The end.